Okay, last time I gave this presentation was in Memphis, and I was wearing Elvis get-up, but I promised I wouldn't do it again. The presentation I'm going to give you here is an update on what ARIN has been doing about lame delegations in the reverse map of the zones that we are serving. The background of this is that our membership has decided they want lame delegations to be handled somehow, get them out of the way, because they do cause a problem for the internet. The staff has been busy trying to get this policy implemented. We've been working on it now for a couple of months. We've seen some improvement in what's happening, and we're also sharing with the other registries that are interested in doing the same thing what our experiences have been. Now, the background of this particular effort is all pretty much in last year. Starting in the spring of last year, there was a policy proposal made on our public policy mailing list to say we want lame delegations to go away. There was some discussion at the ARIN 9 meeting. Over the summer, we measured how bad the problem was. We decided that it was a significant enough problem to spend time trying to eliminate lame delegations. Following some more discussion, there was some more discussion at the next ARIN 10 meeting that was in Oregon. Policy was adopted, and in December, we began working on the problem. This is going to, the next couple of slides are going to run through basically what the policy has asked the staff to do. And the policy is pretty much oriented about who do we contact when we have a problem, as opposed to what is lameness and what do we do about it. First part of this, we have 4 phases. We have a test phase where we go out, we try to identify lame delegations to do a test to see what's out there. Then we get a fairly lengthy and extensive contact process. The first thing we do is we look at the network registrations that we have in our database and look at the points of contact. The first thing we do is we try sending emails to the people who are attached to that the network block for which the zone is considered to be lame, or is suspected of being lame, rather. If nothing happens, then we go to the autonomous system number record and see who's the point of contact for that AAS that's originating the route for that prefix. And if nothing happens, then we try telephone to one of those points of contact. If nothing happens still, we try postal mail. We try sending out regular mail to the post office. And if still nothing happens, we go into an evaluation phase. We decide, have we made sure we know what we're doing here, make sure that we've actually tested this thing sufficiently, and we wait 30 days to allow the postal mail to get through, people to possibly respond to this, because the contact information we have, it can go back from pre-ARIN days. We don't know how to get through to somebody now for some of the old networks. Finally, after 30 days go by, if nothing has happened, we declare the delegation to be lame. And the way we then go about removing the delegation by taking the NS records out of the DNS. We update the WHOIS information for that registration block, saying that we've tested this for lameness. We found these different problems. This is the date it happened, and when we did the update to the record, and we finally take it out of DNS. And that's a summary of what the policy has asked us to do. Now, what we've done, the staff has done to implement this policy, is we've gone around with a testing tool that we've developed right now, which does this the test I have described here. It asks for the SOA record for the zones that are under test. We try all of the IP addresses for every server we can find, and we look to see the answers that come back to us. If the answers come back that are not satisfactory, meaning that the answer is not authoritative, the answer is authoritative, but it's basically a negative answer, which is the second category. Or in the third category, is an answer comes back with another DNS record saying, look elsewhere for this data. We call that lame. We're going after those ones first. Obviously, that's not a complete test of lameness. What we're not flagging right now is anytime we fail to get information. If we don't get an IP address for the name server, we don't go after it, because there's so many subcases there to handle still. If we don't get an answer back from the server, we don't go after that right now. One reason for that is it's a lot of work to be sure that you're right about a server that doesn't answer, because the routing issues may pop up. It may be a daily thing, maybe transient outages that are going through the network. Also, maybe where we're doing the testing from. And we have to do more testing to get around to be sure that we want to speak about those. Also, it's easier to demonstrate to someone, look, your name server gave us this data. It's not the right answer. If we don't get an answer back, it's hard to negotiate or to explain to someone what the problem is or what the fix might be. What we've done so far is on this slide here. We did our initial test back in February. We sent out notices according to the first step of the policy, which was email to the points of contact of the network registration block. We ran a second test again to see how we were doing in terms of reporting. We did a second notice because it seemed to be very helpful to do it again, being this is our first time through the policy. Then we did another test. And this last test was to help us measure how much work we had accomplished by this first phase. Recently, we started doing the next level of notification, which goes to the autonomous system number point of contact. And the AS number that we go after is found through Looking Glass. I believe it's Looking Glass. We go out and ask from the routing tables, who is advertising this prefix? Because we can't rely on the data in our database to tell us this necessarily. An organization may have many AS numbers, many prefixes. We can't match them up from what we have. We have to go to the routing table to really know the answer for that. We sent notices out a few days later, and we did another test we ran just on Friday. I think it was Thursday or Friday before I left for here. And this is some statistics showing our findings based on measurements by zone by zone. Initially, we tested about 200,000 zones that we had in our database. Of that, 55,000 we flagged as having some lame answers come back. The test that we did at the end of the first phase, about 6 weeks later, I guess, showed that this number had gone down to 36,000 zones. So we feel that we had at least some impact right away. We went to the second phase, we tested again, and we saw even a smaller number now, down to 29,000 zones being lame. And we just ran the test again. We noticed that this number has bounced back up to 35,000. Just to reinforce that we're talking about zones in the previous slide, this is some statistics about servers. When we're hitting servers in the test, we're looking at zone by zone information right now. And in the servers that we tested initially, 3/4 of them were not flagged as being lame. And that doesn't say that they were good. It just says that they did not come back with an answer saying that they were lame. And that's a big difference. About 20% said that they were not authoritative servers. They were probably running recursively, for example. So we didn't accept those as a well-delegated zone. About 5% came back saying that there was no information here about that zone didn't exist. And there was one case, an initial, that had some other answer, had a C name that referred out of the zone. Now when we do this testing, we automate the testing. The engineering has automated this test to go out and test the servers. When the registrants that are contacted saying we found a problem with your name servers, they come back and either call or email to our registration services. And this is a rough idea of how many times they were contacted in the period of the first couple of tests. Now, when someone contacts our help desk, what our procedure is at that point is to first communicate with the registrant about the problem. First, we look at it to see what are we seeing as being wrong, so we can talk with them about what the problem was that got our attention about their name server. We explain to them what we expect to see. What is a non-lame delegation? What's a good delegation? What does it look like when we do our test? Then there are two things that can happen here. One is it might be right to change the database that we have. So we walk people through the process of changing the records in our database, because again, people may be registered from pre-ARIN days in our database. On the other hand, people may decide they want to fix the name server to handle the delegation correctly, and we walk through them as much as we can in helping them fix their name server. Now, name servers are different, depends on what you're running, so we can't offer the exact recipe for a correctly configured name server. There's too much for us to cover in that area. Now, some of the observations we've had to date about this is that people are generally interested in getting this solved. I've known that in other registries outside of the ARIN region, outside of even the RIRs, are interested in getting this problem solved too. People want to correct this problem. They want to know what it's about. We have a web page there which has a question and answer about some of our efforts and some explanations. We've also noticed this is going to be a very deliberate process. It's hard to handle. It's hard to clean up all of this information in the database. There's a lot of zones out there. A lot of ways things may not be done correctly. There are a lot of ways to contact people. We're trying to decide what's the best way to go through here and do all this with the large amount of data we're handling. Now, the next steps we have are to continue the notification process. We haven't even gone through the entire escalation phase yet. We haven't gone to the telephone. We haven't gone to postal mail yet. We continually update our database information every time we find that there is something to fix in our database records, like that zone shouldn't have been delegated to that name server. We're going to continue testing for lames. We're going to go through and try to be more thorough in what we look for in lames, try to catch more instances, and try to catch the name servers that are just not answering, for whatever not answering means. While we're doing this, we're also identifying engineering issues with this. There are certain issues that are popping up in discussions around in other regions. We're collecting our lessons. I've already presented once to RIPE about what we're finding in the process of doing this. We're identifying implementation issues in going through this process. And again, sharing experience with the other registries. Other registries are wanting to do this too, so we're giving them what we can. There are discussion lists talking about lameness, DNS lameness. There's one in APNIC and there's one at RIPE, and they're trying in both places to define the problem for their regions and also for the members and to spread through the internet in their regions. There's also some tool-specific mailing lists, which I don't have a list of here. There's just too many of them for each of the different tools that do checking. If you do want information about this, if you want to know some tools that are available, you can send an email to me, and I'll give you some links to some of the tools that I've seen presented to me, particularly at the RIPE meeting just a few weeks ago. And that's about all that I have. So, let the moderator decide what happens next.
I have a question, actually, and if anybody else has a question, then come up here. Are the other registries, are they doing this sort of thing yet?
They haven't taken steps to actually identify lame delegations. I don't believe they've actually gone through and done anything particular. They're mostly in the phase of identifying what is lameness, what does that mean from a protocol sense, how much of a problem do they have. We have internally agreed that we do need to measure each of our delegations separately. The RIPE delegations, the APTIC delegations, and ours, we want to measure the level of lameness in all three of those, LACNIC also, because there are reasons why they may be different, put it that way. In our region, especially because we have the old registrations, we may have more of a lameness problem than they do. So we're actually going ahead and doing things now.
Anybody else?